I found my wife's secret ledger revealing she siphoned $250, $0 from our joint account to fund her affair with our best friend. Then she lied about the inheritance we never received. Now she's threatening legal action to claim everything, even our family home. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation where my wife, Lisa, would turn out to be the biggest liar and cheat I've ever met. The kind of thing you see in movies, not something that happens to a guy like me. But here I am, staring at her ledger, realizing she's been siphoning $250, $0 from our joint account to fund her affair with our best friend, Mark. Yeah, Mark. The guy I trusted with my life. And all this time, she was lying about an inheritance we supposedly received, which, as it turns out, was a complete fabrication. The whole thing is like a train wreck I can't look away from. It started a few months ago when I noticed the bank statements weren't adding up. Small discrepancies at first, an extra hundred here, a few hundred there. I shrugged it off, thinking maybe I was just forgetful or missing something. But then I saw a pattern. Large withdrawals, sometimes in the middle of the night, sometimes in cash. I asked Lisa about it. She brushed it off, said it was some investment she was making or that she was paying off some bills we'd forgotten about. She looked me in the eye, that bitchy smile she always wore when she was hiding something, and told me to relax. But I didn't relax. I started digging. I found a hidden file on her laptop, an encrypted folder she thought I wouldn't find. Inside was a ledger meticulously kept. At first I thought it was some kind of business thing or maybe her side hustle. But then I saw the names, Mark, Sarah, John, all linked to the money. And the entries, they were payments, siphoning off cash, transferring thousands directly into her secret accounts. She'd been doing this for over a year. Over $250, $0 gone just like that. All while she was pretending to be the loving wife, the caring mother to our two kids. The worst part, I found out she'd been lying about an inheritance we never got. She told me she inherited money from her aunt, a story I bought because she seemed so convincing. But when I checked the estate records, there was nothing. No inheritance, no money, just her lies. She had fabricated the whole thing to cover her tracks, to make it seem like she wasn't stealing from us. Meanwhile, she was funneling that money into her affair with Mark. I could see the receipts, the transfers, thousands paid to Mark's account, money that could have gone toward our kids' college funds or saving for a house. I was stunned. Angry doesn't even begin to cover it. I felt betrayed, like my entire life was a lie. The woman I loved, the woman I trusted with everything, she was cheating, lying, stealing right under my nose. I kept asking myself, how did I miss it? How did I not see what was happening? I was blind and she was clever, hiding everything behind her bitchy smirk and her fake tears when she needed to manipulate me into believing her. The worst part is, I don't even know when it started. Did she fall for Mark right after we got married? Was she cheating on me all along, or did it just happen recently? I can't tell anymore. All I know is that she's been lying to my face for over a year, living a double life. One where she's the perfect wife, and another where she's screwing my best friend, draining our account, and lying about money she knew I'd never suspect. I never thought I'd be the guy who finds out his wife is cheating, stealing, and lying so blatantly. It's like my whole world just crumbled in a matter of days. And the worst part, she's now threatening legal action to claim everything. Our house, the savings, the kids' future, if I even try to confront her or take action. She's playing the victim, acting like I'm the one who's wrong for catching her. That bitchy, manipulative smile she always wears is etched in my mind now, reminding me of how deep her lies went. I don't know what's worse, the betrayal itself or the fact that she's still trying to control everything, even as her house of cards is falling down. After I found the ledger and all those receipts, I felt like I'd been hit by a freight train. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. My mind kept going in circles, trying to process how Lisa could be so cold, so calculating. She always had that bitchy smirk when she lied, but this took it to a whole new level. I kept asking myself, was she always planning to do this? Did she ever love me, or was I just a mark in her game? The worst part was the realization that I'd been blind to her manipulations for so long. I decided I had to confront her. I didn't want to believe it, but I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. One night, I sat her down in the living room. She was dressed to impress, that fake bitchy smirk on her face, trying to act innocent. I threw the ledger on the table and told her I knew everything. Her reaction: she looked at me with a mix of shock and disdain, like I just insulted her. "You're crazy, David," she snapped. "You're just jealous because I didn't do anything with Mark. You're paranoid. Maybe you're the one cheating." That lie made me furious. I already knew she had lied about the inheritance. She'd spun a whole story about how her aunt left her a fortune that she was holding onto for us. I had checked the estate records myself. Nothing, just her bullshit. And now she was trying to gaslight me, making me doubt my own eyes. I told her I found the ledger, the transfers, the payments to Mark. I told her I knew about the $250, $0 she'd stolen, about how she'd been lying all along. Her face twisted into an ugly sneer. "You're overreacting, David. I was just trying to help us. Mark been there for me, and I needed the money. You don't understand how hard I've had it. You're so blind, so clueless." She started crying, but it wasn't genuine. It was a performance, a way to make me feel guilty, to turn the tables. She kept insisting she loved me, that she'd never cheat, that I was just paranoid. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I saw her for what she was: a liar, a thief, a manipulator. The emotional roller coaster was brutal. I went from shock to anger, then to a deep sadness I couldn't shake. I felt betrayed on every level. How could she do this? How could she lie about the inheritance, about her feelings, about everything? I thought about the years we spent together, the plans for the future, the trust I had in her. All gone. It was like waking up from a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I knew I had to decide what to do next. I couldn't stay in this toxic mess, but I also didn't want to ruin everything without a plan. Confronting her was just the beginning. I started thinking about the money, the house, the kids. All of it was on the line. She was threatening legal action to claim everything, even the house we bought together. I realized I needed to gather evidence, not just of her affair, but of her financial crimes. I contacted a lawyer, started to get my ducks in a row. I couldn't let her walk all over me, not after finding out she'd been living this double life for so long. Meanwhile, Lisa kept up her act. She was still trying to manipulate me, still insisting she loved me and that I was overreacting. She called me paranoid, said I was jealous of Mark, that I didn't understand how much she'd been suffering. It was all bullshit. I saw through her lies now, every single one of them. The more she tried to gaslight me, the more determined I became to take control of the situation. I knew I couldn't trust her anymore, not even a little. The betrayal was too deep, and I was starting to realize that my marriage was over. But I also knew I had to be careful. She was dangerous in her own way. She'd do anything to keep her secrets hidden, even threaten me legally if I pushed too hard. That night, I stayed awake, thinking about everything. Every lie, every dollar stolen, every fake smile. I felt hollow, like I'd lost part of myself. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I had to protect myself and my kids. I couldn't let her get away with this. I had to fight for what was rightfully mine. I didn't know yet what the future held, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to be her pawn anymore. I was done being the naive husband she used to manipulate. The real battle was just beginning. The days that followed were a blur of legal consultations, digging through bank statements, and trying to piece together what Lisa had been doing behind my back. I couldn't believe how deep her lies ran. Every time I thought I'd uncovered enough, I'd find something new. She'd been siphoning money for over a year, and she'd managed to keep it hidden with the kind of skill that only a professional liar could pull off. The ledger was the smoking gun, but I knew there was more. I had to be thorough. My first move was to hire a private investigator. I needed to know exactly how far her deception went, especially regarding Mark. I wasn't about to let her manipulate me any longer. The pie uncovered some shocking details. Lisa and Mark had been seeing each other for over a year, not just secretly but blatantly. They'd been sneaking around, meeting in hotels, and apparently Mark had been funding her lavish lifestyle with the stolen money. It was sickening to think she'd been living this double life while I was at work, trusting her with everything. Meanwhile, Lisa kept up her act of innocence. She'd cry, scream, deny everything, whatever it took to keep me second-guessing myself. She'd say I was paranoid, that I was accusing her of things she didn't do, that I was just jealous of Mark's attention. She'd call me controlling, insecure, even mentally unstable, but I wasn't buying her bullshit anymore. I knew her game. I'd seen her true face now, and it wasn't pretty. She was a liar, a thief, and a manipulator who'd do anything to protect her secret. I started gathering all the evidence I could, screenshots of bank transfers, emails, text messages, even recordings of her phone calls. I wanted everything documented. I knew she'd try to spin this into some kind of legal mess, so I had to be prepared. I also reached out to a lawyer who specialized in financial crimes and divorce cases. I explained everything, handed over the ledger, the bank statements, the proof of her affair. It was clear she had no intention of stopping her lies or her stealing. The lawyer told me I had a solid case to fight for custody, the house, and the money she'd stolen. Throughout all of this, Lisa's attitude didn't change much. She was still bitchy, still trying to paint herself as the victim. She'd threaten me with legal action if I went too far, claiming I was ruining her reputation, that I was trying to destroy her. She even tried to turn the kids against me, saying I was crazy and that she'd protect them from my accusations. But I could see right through her. She was desperate, cornered, and willing to do anything to keep her secrets safe. That's when I realized I couldn't trust her anymore, not even a little. The most shocking revelation, which came from the pie, was that Mark had been funneling money into her account from some shady sources. I didn't know the details, but it was enough to get a court to freeze her assets temporarily. I felt a strange mix of relief and rage. Relief, because I finally had proof of her betrayal and theft. Rage, because she'd lied and manipulated everything for so long. I kept asking myself how I missed the signs, how I was so blind to what she'd been doing right under my nose. I also started to think about the future, about what I wanted to do once this was all over. Part of me still loved her, but I knew that love was buried under layers of lies and betrayal. I couldn't trust her anymore, not with our money, not with our kids, not with my heart. I knew I had to protect myself and my family from her manipulations. The thought of losing everything, our home, the savings, the kids' stability, terrified me. But I also knew I couldn't stay in a marriage built on lies. I made a decision. I was going to fight for everything she'd taken from us. I wasn't going to let her walk away with the house or the money she'd stolen. I was going to do everything in my power to get justice and make sure she couldn't manipulate her way out of this. I'd been naive for too long, trusting her blindly. Now, I was done playing nice. It was time for her to face the consequences of her actions. And if she thought she could threaten me or intimidate me into backing down, she was dead wrong. I was ready for whatever came next. The legal process moved faster than I expected once I handed over all the evidence. My lawyer was sharp, and he knew exactly how to handle a case like this. We filed for a formal investigation into her financial activities, and almost immediately, the court issued a freeze on her assets. That was a huge win. I could see the panic in Lisa's eyes when she realized her money was no longer accessible. She started to get more aggressive, threatening to sue me for defamation, claiming I was trying to ruin her reputation, but I didn't care. I had proof, and I was going to use it. Meanwhile, I kept digging. I needed to understand how deep her lies went, especially regarding the inheritance she'd been claiming. I contacted her family, her friends, anyone who could shed light on her past. What I found was disturbing. Her stories about her childhood, her supposed wealthy relatives, turned out to be exaggerated or outright false. There was no inheritance coming, no money from her family. She'd spun that lie for years just to make herself seem more important, more deserving of trust. All the while, she was secretly siphoning money to fund her affair with Mark. The confrontation with her grew more intense. One afternoon, I confronted her again in the kitchen. I had all the documents spread out on the table, bank statements, transfer records, the ledger. I told her I knew everything. Her bitchy smirk returned, but this time it was different. It was nervous, almost desperate. She tried to deny everything, claiming I was crazy, that I was misreading the situation. She said Mark was just a friend, that she'd never cheated or stolen from me. That was a lie, and I called her out on it. I told her I had proof of their affair, proof of her stealing from us, proof that she'd lied about the inheritance. Her reaction was classic. She snapped, calling me paranoid, accusing me of spying on her, of invading her privacy. She started crying, but I saw through the tears. They weren't genuine. They were meant to manipulate, to turn me into the bad guy. She kept insisting she loved me, that everything she did was for the good of the family, that I was just too blind to see it. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I knew her game. She had been playing me from the start, using her bitchy attitude and her lies to keep control. That night, I sat alone in my bedroom, staring at the ceiling. I felt numb, but also strangely relieved. I'd uncovered her secrets, and I was finally taking steps to protect myself and our kids. But the emotional toll was heavy. I kept replaying everything, her lies, her betrayal, how she'd stolen money that could have been used for our future. I wondered how I'd ever trusted her, how I'd let her manipulate me for so long. The pain was sharp, but I knew I had to stay strong. I had a plan now, a way to fight back and regain some sense of control. The hardest part was imagining life after all this. Could I forgive her? Could I move on? Honestly, I didn't know. Part of me wanted to walk away, to erase her from my life completely, but another part still loved her in some twisted way. That love was buried beneath layers of anger, disappointment, and betrayal. I knew I had to choose what was best for me and the kids. Staying with her was no longer an option, not after what I'd discovered. I had to be smart, cautious, and prepared for whatever legal battles lay ahead. I felt a mix of fear and determination. Fear of losing everything, fear of the future without her, but also a fierce resolve to fight for what was rightfully ours. I wasn't going to let her keep lying, cheating, and stealing her way out of this. She thought she could threaten me into submission, but I was done playing nice. I'd come too far to back down now. The truth was out, and I was ready to see this through to the end, no matter how ugly it got. Because in the end, I knew I deserved better, deserved honesty, respect, and a life free of her lies. The court hearings came faster than I expected, and the atmosphere was tense from the start. Lisa's lawyer tried every trick in the book, claiming I was trying to ruin her, that I was harassing her, that I was making false accusations out of jealousy. But I had the evidence. The ledger, the bank statements, the emails, everything pointed to her guilt. Her face was a mask of bitchy defiance, but I could see the cracks forming. She knew she was cornered, and her threats about legal action to claim everything, our house, savings, the kids, began to look increasingly hollow. During one particularly heated session, Lisa sat there with her arms crossed, sneering at me as if she thought she could intimidate me into backing down. She threw out accusations that I'd been unfaithful, that I was spying on her, that I was trying to ruin her reputation because I was jealous of Mark. I just looked at her and said, "You stole from us, Lisa. You lied about the inheritance. You and Mark were cheating, and you thought you could get away with it. Well, the truth is out now, and I'm not going to let you walk away with everything." Her lawyer objected, but the judge was firm. The evidence was damning. The court ordered her to provide a full accounting of her finances, including the source of the funds she'd been siphoning off. I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this was the beginning of the end for her manipulations. Meanwhile, the kids sensed the tension. Lisa tried to act like everything was normal, but I could see the confusion and sadness in their eyes. I sat them down one evening and explained in age-appropriate terms that Mom had made some mistakes, but that we'd work through it. I promised them I'd do everything possible to keep their lives stable. It broke my heart to see their little faces clouded with worry, but I knew I had to stay strong for them. The emotional toll was overwhelming. I was exhausted, drained, but I refused to give up. I knew Lisa's threats weren't empty. She'd always been good at manipulating people, and now she was trying to use the legal system to get what she wanted. But I was prepared. I had my lawyer, my evidence, and a renewed sense of purpose. I'd fight her for every penny, for every inch of that house, if that's what it took. One night I sat alone in the living room, scrolling through all the documents and messages I'd collected. I felt a strange mixture of anger and relief. Anger at her betrayal, anger that she'd stolen from us, and relief that I was finally taking control. I realized that I'd wasted too much time trusting her, believing her lies. But now I was done. I was ready to fight for my family's future, no matter how ugly it got. I also started to question everything about us, about the marriage I thought I knew. Was there any real love left? Or was I just clinging to a ghost of what once was? The pain of betrayal hit hard, but I understood that I had no choice but to move forward. I had to protect my kids, my sanity, and whatever shred of dignity I had left. I wasn't going to let her tarnish everything we'd built. The coming battles wouldn't be easy, but I was determined to see them through. Because at the end of the day, I knew I deserved better than a wife who lied, cheated, and stole. And I was going to make sure she paid for what she'd done. The final weeks were the most exhausting of all. The court proceedings dragged on, Lisa's threats intensified, and the emotional toll pushed me to my limits. I had gathered enough evidence to show a pattern of deception, theft, and betrayal, proof that she'd lied about the inheritance, siphoned off hundreds of thousands, and maintained an affair with Mark that had lasted over a year. Every day felt like a battle, but I knew I couldn't let her win. Not this time. When the judge finally made the ruling, it was like a weight lifted off my shoulders. The court ordered Lisa to pay back the stolen money, to relinquish her claim to the house, and to face restrictions on her access to the kids until a fair custody arrangement was decided. The judge also condemned her for her dishonesty, emphasizing that her behavior was unacceptable and that she'd used her relationship and manipulations to deceive everyone, including me. Lisa's reaction was bitter and angry. She screamed and yelled, claiming she was the victim, that I was trying to destroy her life. She threatened to appeal, to drag everything out even further, but the judge was firm. The evidence was clear and her attempts at manipulation were futile. She realized she'd lost, but her bitchy smirk only hardened into a scowl as she realized she couldn't stop what was coming. In the aftermath, I felt a strange sense of relief mixed with heartbreak. I was finally free from her lies, her theft, and her manipulations. I moved out of the house into a small apartment and focused on rebuilding what was left of my life. The kids were adjusting, slowly, painfully, but I promised myself I'd do everything to give them stability and love, even if Lisa tried to interfere. Looking back, I learned some harsh lessons. Trust is fragile, and sometimes the people you love the most can turn out to be the biggest enemies. I also learned that no matter how much someone manipulates or lies, the truth has a way of coming out. It might take time, it might be ugly, but eventually the lies unravel. I wish I'd seen the signs sooner, but I also know I can't change the past. All I can do now is move forward, wiser and more cautious. To anyone reading this who's going through something similar, don't ignore the red flags. Trust your instincts. Protect yourself and your family. And never let anyone, no matter how manipulative or bitchy, take away your dignity or your future. The pain of betrayal cuts deep, but it also teaches you who you really are. I've come out of this a different man, stronger, more aware, and finally free from the web of lies that almost destroyed me. And I know now more than ever that honesty and integrity are worth fighting for.